Have you ever stopped to think about why some women live alone? No boyfriend, no partner, not even appearing to be searching for one. It's not because they're lonely, heartbroken, or lacking options. The real reason is more uncomfortable, more confronting. It challenges everything we've been told about what a woman is supposed to be. Because when a woman chooses solitude, she's not disappearing. She's returning to herself. And that kind of return doesn't come with applause, attention, or companionship. It comes wrapped in silence, rooted in strength, and filled with a freedom most people don't yet understand. No, she isn't lonely, she's intentional. She's not distant. She's just done setting herself on fire for people who never wanted to feel the warmth. There's something deeply unsettling about a woman who doesn't need a relationship to feel complete. Because it breaks the rules of control, exposes the myth of emotional dependence, and reveals a hard truth. Most men don't know how to handle a woman who doesn't need to be rescued. And many women are only beginning to recognize themselves in that same quiet mirror of power. Carl Jung said, "What we deny in ourselves becomes part of our shadow." And these women who live alone, are often the embodiment of that shadow. They represent what so many dream of becoming but lack the courage to be. They don't shout to be loved. They express their choices in silence. They don't seek attention, they withdraw to protect their energy. And that alone is enough to make others uncomfortable. Because in a world that demands speed, urgency, and romantic status, these women have discovered strength in standing alone. The woman who lives without a partner isn't behind. She's ahead. She moves in a space where nothing is begged for, it's chosen. Where she doesn't need approval, her presence speaks for itself. And maybe that's why she receives criticism, judgment, and constant attempts to define her. But what people miss is that her seeming absence is actually presence. A presence that expands, that confronts, that redefines the emotional rules we've lived by. She doesn't want just any love. She wants one that doesn't require her to shrink. And until that arrives, she'll remain as she is. Solid, full, complete. Maybe you don't understand her yet. Maybe you think she's overreacting, proud, or carrying past wounds. But somewhere inside, quiet and persistent, there's a question you've probably avoided. What if her silent path is the only one that leads to the kind of love that doesn't break you? The kind that begins with you. The silence that surrounds a woman who walks alone isn't emptiness. It's protection, a sacred space. But those who don't understand it are quick to mislabel it. They call her cold, detached, even proud. Carl Jung once said, "What we refuse to face within, we end up casting onto others." And maybe that's why so many still mistake solitude for lack, when in truth it can be the most fertile ground for self-discovery. While most people try to feel full through outside validation, she turned inward. And in the silence of her own mind, she confronted the ghosts she'd spent years running from. The childhood wounds, the silent rejections, the false loves wearing beautiful masks. Her choice to be alone didn't come from fresh pain. It came from an old scar that finally stopped bleeding. She didn't give up on love. She just stopped settling for versions of it that made her feel small. This woman has seen chaos. She's loved past her limits. She's poured herself out for people who only offered crumbs in return. She begged for things that never should have needed begging. But eventually the ache faded, and the silence started speaking. And what it said changed everything. What you're seeing now isn't detachment. It's evolution. It's emotional clarity. And clarity is terrifying because it doesn't play along. It doesn't flatter or pretend. It requires presence, honesty, and depth. She's no longer drawn to empty promises, only to people who show up, not with charm, but with truth. That's why she seems out of reach. She's not waiting to be saved. She's waiting to be seen. And that kind of seeing requires courage, the courage to go into places most people avoid, the places where real connection begins. When a woman becomes whole, the world reacts in two ways. It either admires her or fears her. Admiration from those on the same path. Fear from those still looking for someone else to complete them. She's not here to complete anyone. She's here to expand, alongside someone who has also found themselves. And until that soul shows up, she walks alone. Not by accident, but in loyalty to the woman she fought to become. She's not hiding. She's protecting. And there's a big difference between isolation and self-preservation. But the world doesn't know what to do with a woman like this. A world that still believes a woman's story only makes sense if it ends with someone by her side. A world that sees her aloneness and assumes failure because it fears what it can't define. Jung once said, "Where convention rules, authenticity cannot breathe." And this woman doesn't follow convention. She lives from essence. She doesn't rush. She moves at the speed of her own soul. And that alone stirs resentment in a world that wants everything on demand. She's hungry for depth, while the world gorges on distraction. She values presence, while the world offers only availability. She wants something that touches the soul, while everyone else is busy performing for the next Instagram story. So when she says no, it's not strategy, it's truth. When she leaves, it's not drama, it's protection. When she chooses solitude over a meaningless night out, it's not arrogance. It's clarity that clarity, earned through heartbreak, surrender, and truth, became her quiet revolution. Because she doesn't exist to impress anyone. She exists to be. And it's that, just being herself without apology, that makes her dangerous to the system. What unsettles people most isn't that she's alone. It's that she's finally at peace with it. Carl Jung once said, "Those who look outside dream, but those who look within awaken." And that's exactly what she did. Her awakening wasn't graceful, it was brutal. She tore off every mask she once wore to be accepted. She stood face to face with the neediness she used to hide behind love. And then, she rebuilt, brick by brick, piece by piece. She no longer needs to be seen through someone else's eyes. She finally sees herself. And that single shift changed everything. How many times have you asked yourself, is being alone a failure or a choice? Is this strength or something broken in me? She's asked herself that too. She once believed something was wrong with her. In a world that praises couples, even if they're unhappy. But then came the turning point. She realized it's better to be alone than to feel invisible while standing next to someone. That day, she made a vow to herself. Never again would she settle for less than what her soul was truly worth. Her journey hasn't been linear. There have been doubts, nights filled with silence, memories that still ache. But through all of it, a different kind of strength has been quietly building. The kind that only grows when every choice is made in full awareness. She came to understand something rare. Real love doesn't control. It doesn't consume. It doesn't demand you shrink. The love she seeks is the kind that breathes with her, not over her. That lifts without holding tight. That expands instead of suffocates. And until that kind of love appears, she chooses her own evolution. Not because of ego, but because of integrity. She is the living essence of Jung's idea of individuation. She descended into her own depths, met her shadow, faced what most people spend a lifetime avoiding, and came back more whole than she ever imagined. And now that she knows who she is, she'll never allow herself to be a half again. She's not looking for someone to fix her. She's waiting for someone who's also done the work. And yes, that intimidates people, because it requires emotional responsibility, a kind of love built on self-awareness, not fear. Most people still don't know how to love that way. They cling, they possess, they project. They call it love, but it's really fear in disguise. So if she walks alone today, it's not loneliness. It's wisdom. Every step she takes carries a lesson. Every boundary she sets is an act of self-respect. Every absence she chooses is proof that love is never something to be begged for. She has nothing left to prove. And that kind of inner certainty, the kind that rises from the deepest layers of the soul, it shifts the atmosphere around her. Because a woman who has come home to herself doesn't need to fight to be powerful. Her clarity is what makes her unstoppable. And she has come to discover that the only real relationship begins after you've loved yourself enough to stop needing anyone to complete you. What you're witnessing is a new kind of woman. A woman who's done playing roles. One who left behind surface-level desire and chose depth. Who walked away from being wanted to wait for someone who would truly respect her. She didn't choose solitude because she gave up on love. She chose it because she finally understood what love is not. And once a woman learns that, her reality shifts. She doesn't need to raise her voice to be heard anymore. Her presence does the speaking. And when she enters a space, something changes. Not loudly, but unmistakably. Like the atmosphere adjusts itself in quiet reverence to the energy of a woman who finally belongs to herself. This isn't mysticism, it's energy. The quiet gravity of someone who has faced the darkest corners of herself and still chose to return in peace. Not because she destroyed all her fears, but because she learned how to coexist with them without letting them define her. If this message stirred something deep inside you, if it felt like it was speaking directly to your soul, then maybe that's because you are the woman we've been talking about all along. If that's you, let us know by commenting, "I am the woman," and if you're still becoming her. If you're on the journey to becoming the kind of woman who knows herself, who can't be broken, dimmed, or defined by anyone else, then drop a comment below and say, "I am ready to become her." Now, I only ask one thing. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with another woman because she needs to hear this. Let's not keep this truth hidden. Let's pass the fire forward. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to meet us in the comments. Let us know who you are. We'll see you in the next episode.